Hey, I'm Danielle Damrell, and welcome to the Created Worthy podcast. On this show, you can join me as I sit down with women from a variety of ages, backgrounds, and experiences. Together, we will learn and grow from sharing each of our stories and experiencing the life-changing power of connection. So, whether you're here because you're a boss babe running your own empire and are just looking for some unconventional advice, or because you feel totally alone and are looking for stories to relate to, this is the podcast for you. You are welcome here. I believe we are all inherently worthy, and through faith, creative processing, and real connections, we can all continue moving forward to be the joy-filled, triumphant women we are created to be. Hello. Before we jump into this amazing interview with this incredible woman, I just want to give a brief update. Today is actually the day of Kasey's website launch. This has been so many months in the making, and I am just so excited that today, the day that her episode is releasing, is also the day of her website launch. So stay tuned for more information throughout the show about all the incredible tools, resources, and services that she is now providing. Now let's jump in to her story. I am excited to introduce you all to Kasey Phillips, coach, friend, Enneagram 3, the achiever, and lawyer turned personal trainer. From losing over 100 pounds to drastically pivoting in her career, to traveling the world solo, to becoming a caregiver to her mom, to building and then rebuilding, thanks COVID, her own business as a health and fitness coach, Kasey has so many incredible gifts and stories of wisdom and courage to share with the world. Kasey's mission is to empower those who feel stuck or stagnant to create movement in their bodies and in their lives. Kasey, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. So we have actually been accountability partners technically since January, end of January. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's been such a crazy 7 months for both of us, and I am so grateful that you have been my wing woman, right-hand woman / for real accountability partner for the last 7 months, because you are just such a gift, and your wisdom and your experience has blessed me so much. So just had to get that out there to start, which I know I've told you 100,000 times already. I'm like, just so you know, I love you. You've helped me.
Feeling is completely mutual. I feel like we're good compliments to each other.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you again for being here, and I would love to just start with you telling a little bit of your story, whatever you feel like is on your heart.
Sure. So I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. I grew up there, and then I went to college and law school in Orange County. I went to Chapman University for both. Go Panthers.
For your undergrad and your law school? Wow.
Yes, for undergrad and law school.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I love, the school was so small when I went there, and it's blown up much bigger now, but I loved my time at Chapman, both at the undergrad and the law school. So yeah, so I went to undergrad and law school at Chapman. I graduated law school in 2010, and I had struggled with my weight pretty much my whole life, and just feeling good in my body, not just weight, but self-image, and also just my body was creaking and groaning and not happy. So
yeah, and I think I remember we both have hypermobility as well, right?
Yes.
So that's something that I think a lot of people don't really know about, but it's an actual thing where you're just overly flexible.
Yes.
And you need to be strong in order to not be in pain. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to build up the strength to actually stabilize everything, versus other people who are maybe tight have to mobilize things. So it's been a lifelong thing, right? Of learning how to be in my body. But it really sort of snowballed, I guess, after law school. I graduated, I took the bar, and then I got mono. And I had my ENT who'd been practicing for, 40 years plus, told me I had the worst case of mono he'd ever seen. I was completely bedridden, and I decided first that I would study for another bar exam while I was in bed. So I studied for the Colorado bar, flew out to Colorado, and took that bar while I still was sick. I wasn't contagious, don't worry. And then when I could finally stay awake for more than half hour at a time, I was like, okay, I have to stop running my body into the ground. And then I also just wanted to get out of the house. I was so housebound. I was diagnosed and basically bedridden from November until almost February.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's
and
a long time.
Put on steroids and all sorts of things. I had liver inflammation, spleen inflammation. I wasn't allowed to lift more than 10 pounds. I was originally treated for strep, so I had a rash that went head to toe, was super red and itchy. So in all of my swearing in statements for the bar, I have this bright red rash, and then it peeled all my skin off.
Oh my gosh. And that was all from the mono?
That was all from the mono. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea that it could do that.
Yeah. Well, it reacted with the antibiotics that I was given for strep, and that's what caused that.
Oh my gosh. So after you took the bar in Colorado, were you already a practicing attorney in California?
I had passed the bar in California, but because I had mono, I wasn't actually doing anything. And I graduated in 2010, which was when the legal world was pretty much collapsed. So I didn't have a job after, a legal job after I graduated law school for almost 2 years. Almost 2 years after I passed the bar in California. So
what did you do during those 2 years?
So I did lots of odd jobs. I did some research work. I did some contract work. I did some tutoring. I did a bunch of babysitting. I helped people move. I did, all kinds of random things. But I actually took a lot of time to focus on myself and my own health. Very similar actually to 2020 and how everything sort of paused. It was a personal pause on my part. But after I got diagnosed with mono and made the realization that I needed to take care of myself more, I found the cheapest gym that was near my house because I wasn't making an income at the time, so it was just savings, and this was my parents' house, not my own house, by the way. I moved back in with my parents because I couldn't even take care of myself. So I found the cheapest gym. I printed out their free day pass. I was on the elliptical for 20 minutes. That's all I could do. And then of course, at the gyms, they always say, oh, do you want a free assessment and a training session? And I knew what it was. I knew it was to sell me training, obviously. But I also knew that if I booked that appointment, it would get me to the gym the next day.
Yeah,
versus
show up.
being versus being okay, well, now I have the gym membership and I'm still not going to go. So I booked the assessment for the next day and then proceeded on the way home from my 20 minutes at the gym to get McDonald's.
So relatable. I've definitely done that.
Yeah, totally. I did go back the next day and I met with a trainer and he put me through a couple of exercises that were to, assess my strength, my mobility, all of that. And basically it came down to I wasn't taking care of myself and I was overweight and I'd never really exercised formally in my whole life and never really worried about it. And so then we booked the session, right? Because this was the assessment, then you have a session. So we booked the session for the next day because I was okay, well, at least this will keep me coming back. Right. So we booked it for the next day. And I came in, it was a 30-minute session. I probably spent 15 minutes of it on the floor, dizzy, not feeling well, overtaxed, whatever. So
this was right after you had mono?
This was, so St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, so literally right after you were out of your like quarantine or whatever.
Yeah, so St. Patrick's Day was really like when I could just stay awake for more than like 30 minutes at a time, which took a few months. And I probably should not have been working out, like, but
sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, though.
Exactly.
And if you're feeling that pull, as you know now after like so many more experiences, like you have to jump on it or else nothing will change.
Yep.
So
but I am super thankful that I did work with a trainer during that time, because after our initial session I was like, okay, I need some help. So I paid him a bunch of money that I pulled from my savings account, and I bought 8 sessions, and I was like, okay, like 8 sessions, it'll give me a foundation, I'll learn some stuff. Well, after the end of those 8 sessions, I had lost 10 pounds. So it had been a month. I lost 10 pounds. I felt better. I felt more confident going to the gym, like not just being like, okay, I'm here and I'm going to stay on the treadmill, but like actually going to the gym. And I made some friends at the gym. So not only my trainer, but like the other trainers and other members and things like that. So it felt a more familiar environment. Mm-hmm. So then I proceeded to train with this trainer for the next almost 2 years.
He must have been a really good trainer, though, because then you got into personal training. So clearly.
Yeah. He was great. Fantastic. And I found out actually much later that he was a brand new trainer. So don't discount brand new trainers. It's all about the fit personality-wise, because anything really can be learned, as long as they're paying attention to you and they're taking your goals and your needs into consideration. They're a great trainer.
Right. No, I love that. I love that piece of advice. It's so easy to like write people off just from when you find out that they're new to their trade, right? It's even as an artist, like I can relate to that, because I felt like for the first couple of years, people were like, she doesn't know what she's doing. I was like, I promise I can do it.
Well, and the thing is with new trainers too, or new artists or new, whatever, is that they have the desire and the hunger and the want to succeed. So they're going to put the extra effort in, the extra time in, and they're going to do even more to get you where you want to go.
Exactly. No, I love that. So after you did your 2 years of training, or what happened in that 2 years while you that was the beginning of your first like big health transformation, right? Like you had mono and then you got into training. Is that also when you started to practice as an attorney? Or
so I still was not practicing. I was going through interview process at several places. Okay.
So it was
the economy was still down.
Okay.
I was still just doing odd jobs and going to the gym. Like that's pretty much what I did. Odd jobs and going to the gym. And I was living with my parents, which was a challenge for sure. Any adult going home and living with their parents is a challenge. But also I was super grateful to have that support and that time. For sure. Yeah. So in that first year, so that was, March of 2011. And that first year I lost about 70 pounds. The first year of working with him, and my body like completely changed. Like
70 pounds. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, good job.
Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting looking back, because it's like, when you have big accomplishments like that, you start to forget how big they are, I think, the further you get from it. So it's nice to revisit those sometimes.
Yes, celebrate. I'm like all about the celebrating. Well, I'm all about celebrating other people's lives. Let's be honest.
Same.
But every time I hear someone tell their story, I'm like, yes, oh my gosh. And they're like only 1/10 of the way through it. I'm like, that was amazing. Keep going. Oh my gosh. Well, yes, 70 pounds, huge deal, but there's even more to come. So then what happened? Yeah.
So I lost 70 pounds in the first year. I was also working with a nutritionist at the time. After a few months of working with him, I realized it wasn't a good fit. So then I started working with a health coach who was like nutrition certified, not necessarily a nutritionist, but I did some work with her and more healed my relationship with food versus just being like, this isn't your meal plan, this is what you eat. But like exploring other food options and finding ways to make food so that I would like them. I especially struggle with vegetables still, but I found lots of ways to hide them, and even now, I'm still exploring new ways to make them so that I will eat them.
Right. So, was there any part of your story that you had any kind of eating disorder, or was it really just an unhealthy relationship with food?
I would say more just, I don't know that I struggled necessarily with thinking like this food's bad, this food's good. I definitely I was super busy. I always took even as a kid, like I was always doing extracurriculars, and I had 0-period classes in high school, and I was doing this and I was doing that. Yeah. So it became more of a convenience thing of like, oh, I'm just going to grab this package thing. I'm going to just run through the drive-thru. I'm just like, whatever. It became more of a convenience thing. And my parents were really busy. Like my dad had his own business. My mom worked crazy hours. I mean, she was around for us totally when we needed her. Like I love my mom, but she, worked crazy hours. So we were eating at like 9, 10 o'clock at night. We'd eat dinner.
And that was normal.
And that was normal. Okay. Yeah. And I didn't know any different. So that was,
that was your normal.
Yeah. That was my normal. So, and, I didn't even bat an eye at it, really.
Right.
And then I don't think it was really until I became a trainer myself and then started looking into nutrition myself and wasn't necessarily working with someone one-on-one that I became more in tune with what my body needed. So it was a while.
Right. So tell me a little bit about that pivot in your career, because this health transformation was kind of happening right before you decided that maybe being an attorney wasn't what you wanted to do.
Yeah. So actually the health transformation occurred quite a bit before the career transformation, I'll call it. So I lost a bunch of weight, and then I actually kept training with that trainer up until I accepted a legal job in Orange County. So finally, when the legal market started coming back, I was contacted by a mentor of mine about an open position. And I actually was going to be down in Orange County the week that they wanted to interview people. So I booked an interview, went in, did the interview, flew home, and was offered the job when I got home. Wow. And they wanted me to start the next week. And this was right before Thanksgiving, so I agreed to start the very next week if they allowed me to come back to the Bay Area for Thanksgiving, and also I moved during that time. So I flew down to Orange County. I stayed with my friend's mom. I lived with her for 6 weeks while I was figuring stuff out.
The village it takes to get
totally,
this right?
Totally. And then I moved back down there, and then I actually got sick right after I moved down there, and I was on antibiotics for a long time, which ultimately years later led to me having my tonsils removed. But I was working crazy hours because they were really behind because they didn't have enough people. So I was working these crazy hours while being sick. And I loved the people that I worked with. I loved my coworkers, and I had some great mentors at the law firm. But I just wasn't happy doing what I was doing. And it didn't really hit until maybe a year and a half in or so. And I was I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. I was meeting other people, other attorneys that I didn't necessarily like or respect. And I was, I at times felt that my integrity was on the line and had to say no to certain things.
What kind of law did you practice?
I practiced landlord-tenant for all landlords.
And that was always in Orange County?
Yeah. Well, I was in Orange County. We actually had clients all over the state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Must have been exhausting. I do not envy the life of a lawyer. Just from my like little experience in the legal world that I have had, I'm like, oh, I could not do it. But it took a lot of courage, I'm sure, to say, you know what? I just went through law school and I have my undergrad degree and I've worked to get to this point and I actually don't want to do this. So what led you to that? Like, how did you do that?
You know, it was an interesting time in my life. I was still working on my own personal transformation. I had obviously moved, so I wasn't working with, Zoom training wasn't a thing back then. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't working with the same trainer. I had gotten a new trainer. Ended up that relationship didn't work. That training relationship didn't work out. And I had several trainers who I ended up firing, basically, just because it wasn't a good fit. And that's something that I recommend to everyone. If you are not having a good fit with your trainer, your coach, or whatever, like, that's not the right person for you, and there's someone else out there.
Same with therapy.
Same with therapy, yes.
Yeah, don't waste your time and don't waste their time, because there are people that each person can serve and help, but that person might not be right for you.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean the whole profession is bad or the whole, like, you never want a trainer again or you never want a therapist again. It just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a right fit and I started training myself. And I was like, I've learned so much. I'm just going to take what I've learned and just start training myself. And I went to some group fitness classes. Group fitness wasn't really my thing, like either to attend or to teach. I did like a rowing class. I went to a rowing class once or twice a week that I loved. But beyond that, I did all of my training myself and started losing weight again instead of dealing with trainers that just I wasn't clicking with. Right. So was going through that transformation process and at the same time was like not happy at my job. And I was like, okay, like I'm spending all of this time in the gym. I'm like learning all of this stuff so that I can train myself. Like this is where I'm happiest. Like there's something there. Mm-hmm. And then friends started asking me like, oh, what are you doing? This and that. Like, how do I do this? What is this supposed to look like? What is that supposed to feel like? It hurts when I do this. And I started sharing that. And, other people started getting results. And I was like, okay, I need to like.
Yeah, that's a sign.
Yeah.
Right.
So I actually put a date on my calendar to quit my job as an attorney. And I quit a few weeks before I had intended. And that's when I found out that my mom had a brain tumor. Mm. So I quit my job in Orange County the day that I found out, and I moved back to the Bay Area 2 weeks later and moved back in with my parents and spent the next year, kind of helping my mom out, taking her to some appointments, and also studying for the personal training exam at the same time. That's also the year I had my tonsils removed. So.
Oh my goodness! And it turns out, right, that everything that was happening with your tonsils was tied to some kind of diet issue, or what was the story there?
So that actually I figured out later on, okay. But I was having infections that I think were because of the how bad my mono was, and so every like 6 months or 4 months, I'd get a infection in my tonsils and I'd have to go on antibiotics, but I'm allergic to a lot of antibiotics. So I had to go on like the week antibiotics and I was on them for months, which totally messes with your gut health and the rest of your health. So finally my ENT was like, you need your tonsils removed. And I was 29 at the time. Oh. And I was like, I was ready to have them removed because I was so sick of being sick, but I was also a little bit like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, because the older you get, specifically with that surgery, the more risks are associated with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just the longer it takes you to recover.
Yeah.
So I had them out in June of 2015, and The recovery was awful. If you can avoid having your tonsils removed as an adult, please do. And I was told by everyone, like, you know, your problems are over. You won't have any more infections. It'll be, you know, just get through the recovery. It's going to be great.
Hi, I'm Ella. Please listen to our word from our sponsor.
Today's show is sponsored by Kasey. As you probably now know, Kasey is amazing. She has time and time again taken many courageous steps to pursue her passion to empower those who feel stuck or stagnant so that they can create movement in their life and bodies, just as she has done. If you are looking for a one-on-one personal trainer who can help you out from the comfort of your own home by providing virtual sessions, or are looking to join a small group for community-based accountability and fitness coaching, Kasey is your girl. She also is seeking beta testers for her life transformation program called MoveMEANT for More, which is launching this coming spring in 2022. You can find out more about the services and resources she offers over at her new website, www.kaseyphillips.com, where you can connect with her directly. You can also follow along with her on Instagram at Kasey Phillips, where she will be doing some amazing giveaways coming up. I've got to tell you guys, as a person who has had the incredible blessing of having Kasey as both an accountability partner and the occasional life coach, I personally know the priceless value this woman can add to your life. You are created worthy, my friend. Don't miss this opportunity to step into the abundant life you are meant to live.
I got through the recovery. I was good for a year, and then I started getting infections again.
And in that year, is that you were taking care of your mom at that time as well?
I was taking care of my mom a little bit. After she had taken care of me, even with her diagnosis, when when I had my tonsils, we were like, kind of taking care of each other. Right. But so taking care of my mom, studying for the personal training exam, and then I became a personal trainer and actually got a job at Equinox, which is like such a great gym. I have nothing but good things to say about Equinox. I loved my time there.
And they're in the Bay Area?
They're actually like on both coasts. Pretty big luxury gym, and they're just like, it's a great place to be a member, and it's a great place to learn how to be a trainer. So nothing but good things to say. But I did work crazy hours again at the beginning there, trying to build up my client base and working floor hours and learning the ropes and all of that. So
right. And so that was like your step into your new career then at that point, was working at that gym.
Yes, absolutely. And I had been, when I was an attorney, I'd been a member at Equinox in Orange County, and it was the only gym I wanted to work at when I became a trainer. So I became a trainer, I got the job at Equinox, and I learned so much from so many mentors over that first 6 to 8 months that I was there. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 2 years, but over the first couple months that I was there, I learned so much. The learning curve is just exponential. And
I'm sure you learned how to work with all different types of people, because everybody goes to the gym. Not everybody goes to the gym, but all different types of people go to the gym.
Yeah. So I learned how to work with all different types of people. And at first, when you first become a trainer, you kind of take all the clients that are given to you, right? Or anyone who wants to work with you. And then I sort of refined who I was working with a lot, and tended towards more people who had my similar background of, were significantly overweight and had dealt with it their whole lives and had 100 plus pounds to lose. So I had people of that nature, and then also an older clientele. I took on a lot of clients who were seniors. My personality was just a good fit for them. I'm pretty even keel and mellow. I'm definitely not the boot camp style or anything like that. And I try to explain to my clients what things are for and why they're doing them and, you know, how this is going to help them. We work on mobility and things like that versus just, okay, just do this bench press or just do this squat or just do this, you know, deadlift, whatever.
Right. So at what point did you have to become a full-time caregiver to your mom? You and your
that was
sister
actually
both, right?
a little while after. Yeah. So I started at Equinox in the beginning of 2016. I was there for 2 years. Amazing experience there. But I kept being called to travel. And it's something that I didn't do when I was in college. And I just knew that it was like a now or never thing. So I worked my butt off for Equinox and saved everything I could and then quit. And I left for 4 months and I traveled on my own. And I went to Bali, I went to the Seychelles, and I went all throughout most of Southwestern Europe, Spain, France, Switzerland, Italy, Austria. I went to the Czech Republic. I went to Germany.
Wow,
Greece.
the trip of a lifetime. Oh my God.
It really was the trip of a lifetime. And anyone who has ever wanted to travel for any length of time by themselves, I highly, highly, highly recommend doing it.
So you went on this trip of a lifetime and then came back. And
Yeah, so I came back and my first inclination that something was wrong with my mom was that she didn't come with my dad to pick me up from the airport after I'd been gone for 4 months. And my mom and I were really close. I talked to her almost every day while I was abroad. Like, we video chatted. I taught her how to video chat. And so it was weird to me that she didn't come to the airport and pick me up. And my dad just said she wasn't feeling well. And that kind of started down the road to everything that happened with her. So I got home and I wasn't planning on starting working again right away, but I got recruited to another gym and I started a job there within 3 weeks of coming back from this trip. Like, I was still jet lagged when I started working again. And at the same time, we were dealing with my mom's medication change and running tests for her and things like that. And ultimately it ended up, we found out in September that either her brain tumor was back because she had it radiated before, which is why I'd moved back to the Bay Area from Orange County. So it was either back or the brain tissue was decaying around the area that she had radiated, or some combination of the two. And it was causing her to not feel well. It was causing mental deficiencies, confusion, and even because of where the brain tumor was, personality changes. We finally got the test results to basically confirm suspicions. And at that point, my sister and I took a much bigger role in my mom's healthcare. We started going to every appointment, talking to the doctors directly and not just relying on what my mom said happened at her appointment or what my dad said happened at her appointment, because we obviously weren't getting the full picture by not being there. And I don't know if that was my mom and my dad trying to protect us or really just forgetting or omitting what happened in the appointment. So we started going to the appointments and it became very clear that her chemo medicines had to change and that we were going to need to get some help during the day, basically kind of to be a companion to my mom, not necessarily really help her with things, but if she got confused or if she needed a little assistance with something, then to be there, not a full-time nurse or anything like that, but a companion, basically a support system, because both my sister and I worked full-time and it wasn't fair to my dad to put all of that on him 24/7. So we started looking for caregivers or companions to come in and just be with my mom when I wasn't going to be at home or when my dad needed a break. And We also started doing more of the medical stuff, talking to doctors. We started doing more of the legal stuff. So I was my mom's power of attorney, but my sister was her healthcare advocate. So getting all of that stuff set because it was a brain issue. So there's no telling when she could be basically ruled incompetent, or, unable to make decisions on her own. So we wanted to make sure that everything was in place so that she had it exactly as she wanted it. So she wanted me making her legal decisions and financial decisions, and she wanted my sister making her healthcare decisions, because she knew that we would make those decisions the way she would make those decisions. So it's not always about who you love the most or who, should be making the decisions. When you're picking someone to be your power of attorney or to be your healthcare director, you want to think of someone who is going to make those decisions in the same way that you would, to most honor what you want. She had a very unfortunate accident prior to getting any caregivers in or any support system in. We have a 2-story house. My parents have a 2-story house, and my mom was sleeping on the top story, which our house is reverse of most houses. Our living room, kitchen, dining room is all on the top floor, and our bedrooms are on the bottom floor. But she basically slept in a recliner in the living room. And so she thought she was going to the bathroom, and she ended up in the stairwell. And she fell down the stairs all the way from top to bottom, and ended up with a broken leg, a head laceration, a broken rib, lots and lots of bruises. But my mom was also heavy, so we weren't able to help her move or anything. We ended up having to call the fire department. That's probably something I will remember for the rest of my life. I was asleep in my bedroom downstairs, and I heard her scream and then fall. And that is something, for the whole time I lived in my parents' house after that happened, every time I would go into my bedroom, that's what I would hear.
And so how long after that fall before she got caregivers?
Well, it ended up being a huge mess. We took her to Stanford, and I will never, ever take anyone there again. So we took her to Stanford, which is where she was being treated. She was admitted to the hospital. And there's a whole big long story behind that, and I'm not going to get into it because it'll make me super mad. But
fair enough. We can talk about it on our next
on
our next meeting.
Yes. So she ended up in the hospital having surgery to fix her leg. The surgery did not go that well. Actually, it didn't go well at all. They did a terrible job. She was in the hospital for a few days after that, and basically every day she was just being like, all right, is she ready to be discharged? Is she ready to be discharged? And she ended up in a nursing facility because she had so many injuries. She couldn't go home. We have a 2-story house. There's, no support there. We couldn't even, the doorways aren't even wide enough to get a wheelchair in downstairs. So she ended up at a nursing facility, and my sister and I picked one where we could stay overnight, and also where you could visit any time, because my sister works nights. So she was there, and her leg started getting infected. And I called to have her transferred back to Stanford because she had to have a secondary surgery. They were just waiting for the swelling to go down. And I called back to Stanford to get her transferred back early. And they ended up doing it, but it was not without a fight. And ended up that the ER doctors was actually worried that her leg had gangrene because it was so infected.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So we ended up in the hospital from basically in the hospital and then the nursing home and then back in the hospital from October 18th until till December 1st. So like
2 months.
No, like
almost 2 months.
And during that time, I pretty much slept at the hospital, like on a cot in the hospital, because my mom wasn't really able to make clear decisions on her own, and the doctors kept pushing her to do certain things or not do certain things. And my sister and I weren't okay with that. And they would come in at 4 or 5 in the morning, wake them up for rounds and be like, okay, like this is what we're doing today. And my mom wasn't completely mentally there. So I stayed there and I slept on a cot in the hospital room with her. So that's how terrible sleep I was getting. If you've ever been in a hospital bedroom or hospital room for weeks on end. So I was there with my mom, and then she ended up being discharged to hospice, home hospice at my sister's house, which my sister had a 1-bedroom condo, so it wasn't a lot of space. That was December 1st. She went to my sister's house, I think, on December 2nd. And then basically my sister and I became full-time caregivers. My sister took FMLA from her job, and I moved all of my clients to like 1 or 2 days a week. And thankfully I had amazing clients who were flexible enough to just move and, told me to take care of myself and family comes first. So I was able to do that. And we tried to get caregivers into my sister's house. And that was crazy. If you've ever looked for a caregiver before, like that's so hard. But if anyone needs a caregiver in the Santa Clara County area of California, let me know, because I know a really good company to help you out with. But
yes.
So it just ended up being like beyond what we could handle at my sister's house. And so at the end of December, we moved my mom to a hospice home called Mission House. And they are the only nonprofit hospice facility in the Bay Area. So we moved her there, and she was there from the beginning of January until May 3rd when she passed away.
Wow. And from that time, was she just like continually getting worse?
Yeah. So the only way I can kind of describe it is it was sort of like raising a child in reverse. Because instead of the child learning new things every day, it was like something that she now wasn't able to do or wasn't understanding. So the brain tumor where it was impacted, everything. And my sister and I actually named her brain tumor, which if you have a family member with a brain tumor, I highly recommend doing it, especially if it affects personality, because my sister and I were able to then separate my mom from her tumor. And it just helped with being able to be present with my mom and being okay leaving when the tumor had taken over. And because the tumor was mean, it was really, really
Did you cuss it out?
I did not. I left instead of having arguments. We did have one argument, and it totally broke me. So I learned to leave instead of having arguments, because it was like this other personality in my mom's body.
Right. That's so insightful to think about, like separating the illness from the person or the ailment from the person. That takes a lot of self-awareness and familial awareness for you and your sister to say, you know what, this isn't that. My mom is not this tumor, and this tumor and what she's doing or what it's doing to my mom is not who she is.
Yeah, we have text messages. You probably couldn't find them now because my sister and I text all the time, but text messages saying, oh, Janice was here today. We named my mom's tumor Janice. But, Janice was here today, so I left. or whatever.
Yeah. So then you could stay, in
So then we could
communication
tell,
with your sister.
like,
Right.
this is, because part of it was you never really knew what you were walking into when you walked into my mom's room. You didn't know if the tumor was there and she was going to be mean and really quite awful, or if she was going to be my mom, who was pretty sweet and like just wanted to like hang out and take care of her daughters. I mean, there were times that we were in the hospice home and I'd have to leave to go to work and she'd be like, oh, like, let me make you some lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, she couldn't make me lunch, but
Right.
she still wanted to, you know?
Oh, what a sweet mom. Yeah. So when did she pass away?
She passed on May 3rd of 2019.
Well, thank you for sharing your story about your mom with us, because I know that it's not easy, but
it's not.
Like I said before, you are her legacy, and so is your sister, and I'm just so grateful. One of the pieces of parenting advice that you told me when I was telling you I'm so frustrated because Ella has to do her homework and she like doesn't want to do it, and it's just so annoying because I need to get work done. You were like, my mom sat down with us every day for what, the first, how long?
Like the first year plus that we were each in school. So like me first, and then a couple years later, my sister.
She's like, for 30 minutes every day, she just sat down, helped us do our homework, and then it became a habit. And neither you or your sister had too many issues with getting it done then for the rest of your life because it was an expectation.
Well, she would sit down with us the whole time, not just 30 minutes,
until you'd finish. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I need some of that willpower because, I'm like, why can't you read this word that we've read 100 times already? Like, it's the, T-H-E, the, like, that's what it is. And that is why I am not a teacher.
Well, I'm sure I didn't see some of the behind the scenes of her doing that or thinking that, but I do know that when we got frustrated and didn't want to do it, she would always just go tell us to like wash our face, get a drink of water.
Oh, that's the other thing. Go wash your face. I love that.
So that's something I still do, and I'm having a hard time. Like, okay, I'm going to go get a drink of water. I'm going to go wash my face, and then I'm going to feel better.
I love that. So after she passed away, obviously your life and your family dynamics changed and everything, but how did you get back up and continue to make an impact in now a new way? Because less than a year after your mom passed away, 2020 hit, and as you know and everyone in this world knows, that was a earth-shaking year for everyone.
Yes. 2019, it's interesting because I look at years from two perspectives, right? From like January through to the next January. Mm-hmm. But I also tend to look at them from my birthday, which is in August. So it's a little bit more than 6 months, but so from August to August. Yeah. And so 2019 from January to August was awful. Awful. I was dealing with my mom passing, and I felt like I was kind of losing her like little by little, and I would get glimpses of my mom, while she was still physically here, but we lost part of her every day. Right. And then she did pass, and it's this weird thing where it's like, did that really just happen? Like, is that even real? Like, I remember going home, and like I had just moved into a new apartment the week before she had passed. I moved out of my parents' house because I have a difficult relationship with my dad. So I moved out of my parents' house into a brand new apartment. It's the first time I had seen my new roommate since I moved in. And he asked me how I'm doing, and I'm just like blank face go, well, my mom just passed away. And I'm sure he was like, what? Like,
yeah. How do you reply to that?
You're in this just like numb state of not even like shock, basically.
Right. Shock. Like, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, that just happened, and I took a shower and I had dinner with a friend who was in from out of town that night. like almost like it was another normal night, but I was totally numbed out to everything. And that feeling lasted for months, really. Like that numbed out feeling of just being like going through the motions of life.
Right.
And then in July, I decided I wanted to get back to traveling because that's what I loved so much. It brought me so much joy. And from the moment my mom fell down the stairs until she passed away, I had gone for like 24 hours to Orange County for my godson's 5th birthday and then flew back home. And that was the only time I had left from the time that I returned from my trip. Yeah. So I got back to traveling and I literally had a trip like every 2 weeks. I went to Phoenix to visit a friend, and then I went to Austin to visit a friend, and then I went on an Alaskan cruise, which was amazing.
Wow.
And then I went to Disneyland, and then I went to Texas, to another part of Texas to visit another friend, and then I went to Egypt for 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Another one of my like dream trips. I would love to go to Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh
so, and that brought me to the end of 2019, basically, and I found a lot of healing in travel. A lot. I found a lot of escape there, too, and a lot of numbing out, but a lot of healing. I saw people I hadn't seen in a long time. I let people take care of me instead of taking care of other people. And during that time, I know is when I realized that I wanted to work for myself and I wanted to have my own personal training and coaching business so that I could train and coach my clients according to my own philosophies and my own experiences instead of fitting into this gym model of this is what you have to do, and then you immediately move on to the next client and the next client and the next client, and you're just worried about the money and the sessions and the, making sure that people get in and making sure people renew. And, if you are training people the way you should, if you're giving people what they need and what they want and what you have told them that you are going to provide for them, then it's not going to be a matter of trying to get them to renew or trying to keep them as a client. Like, you're doing that by your everyday, your every meeting with them. So in the fall of 2019, in between all of that travel, I started my own business. And I rented space at a small studio in the Bay Area, which unfortunately no longer exists. It was a victim of coronavirus. Yeah, so I started my own business. I was still working at the gym a couple days a week and then working at the private studio a couple days a week and doing remote coaching also through, not necessarily Zoom, although we did do some Zoom stuff, but it was less training at that time, more just coaching. And then, running small groups online, things like that. And everything started rolling really great. And then everything shut down with the pandemic.
Right.
And the future of fitness was kind of up in the air. Like I was told by my gym, like, okay, we're going to just take 3 weeks off. We're going to pay you at 50% for, the time that you're off. And then the studio closed, temporarily, which, as we know, 3 weeks turned into, what are we now, 18 months or something? Like, eventually that leave of being paid turned into a furlough. But I knew I had to do something. So it actually did two things for me. I took that first 3 weeks, that supposed magical number, 3 weeks when everything was going to go away.
Right.
And actually did take the time off. And I refocused on myself. And I reached out to coaches and mentors of mine to get my stuff back together. So I started virtually training with a trainer friend of mine. She was training me. And I also started to do workouts on my own with a Zoom community, basically. So we were all doing our own separate workouts, but we met at 9 o'clock every morning and took a picture, muted ourselves, and then did our own workout. And that was the turning point, basically, for me in my own health, because I had gained about 60 pounds back when my mom was really sick, and then in the grieving process afterwards. And I had already started, thanks to the wine, gelato, and cheese diet that I had been on in Europe, I had already been a little heavier than when I left. So that was a turning point for me personally, and it opened my eyes to how I could change my business model entirely. And so that's when I started training clients virtually. And I basically reached out to all of the clients that I had trained in the past and offered the service. I offered it at a very high discount to start, because I didn't know how it would go. I didn't know how good I would be at it. And there was just a lot up in the air at the time. And it worked great. Great. My clients upped the number of training sessions that they were doing a week because they were paying less, and because they didn't have the commute, they didn't have a gym membership to pay for, nothing like that. And then they started getting better results because they were more consistent about working out and training. So now my business right now still is all virtual. So all virtual training sessions. I do want to take some in-person clients when things, open up a little bit more, but that will be more related to recovery type work, vibration therapy, stretching, trigger point, things like that, versus the strength training, which can all be done virtually as long as you have the proper equipment, or we can get creative and create the proper equipment.
Yes. There's always a way. Yeah. So that brings me to, what are you doing right now? And what are you hoping to do? What's your biggest goal for the next 6 months?
Oh my goodness, there's so many, and I think that's
I know.
That's
that's both of our problems. Is like, okay, well, actually, this one big goal has 7 sub goals that each have 3 goals underneath them. So let's start with the biggest one, hardest one possible.
Exactly.
So we're both in that process right now of refining and managing realistic goals. But can I just say what I think one of your goals are?
Sure.
You're launching your website. That's a big deal.
Absolutely, yeah. So the website's been a long time in the making. I started building it myself over a year ago and realized I was in way over my head, and finally hired a friend of mine to do it in March, and realized I had no pictures to put on this website. So we finally took pictures in July, and she'll have finished the website by the time this airs. So that has been a whole undertaking. Basically, the website will feature my one-on-one personal training, which is all virtual still right now, and different programs and packages. And then also, I've just launched a small group coaching. My plan is only to offer it maybe a handful of times a year. Really, this is just still in the beta stages because I've really only dug into one-on-one coaching. That's where I believe I excel. So the small group is an evolving thing, and I'm super grateful for my beta testers who are bearing with me as we go through it. And then the next big thing is developing a sort of life coaching program. And I have 2 facets of that. Basically, one would be more of a future movement in planning for your future, and also for the passing of any parents or parental figures.
Grieving.
Grieving, but also the logistics behind it. long-term care policies, getting your power of attorney, your will, your trust.
Yes, look at you. You can merge your background and experience as an attorney and through law school with your coaching and passion to help people.
Or connecting you with people to get it done, because so many people my age and their parents haven't had these conversations of who is a power of attorney, if they have minor children, who is going to be, the appointed guardian for their children if by chance them and their significant other pass at the same time. Do you want a long-term care policy? Do you have a life insurance policy? Like, how are your bank accounts set up? Like, do your power of attorney, do they have automatic access? Do they have, all of these things that I went through with my mom, even setting up, she thankfully had set up her cremation and all of that. So that's not something that we had to deal with, but a lot of people don't have that set up.
Yeah.
And then, the pour over wills and trusts, and I mean, there's just so much. So that facet, I want to put a program together to guide people through, because it's not something that I had, and my goodness, would it have been helpful just to know, okay, this is the next step, and this is the next step, and this is the next step, or this is what I need to have set up for myself, for my family.
And I love
that piece.
Yeah.
And then there's this other, life coaching program I've been working on for a while, and it's starting to take shape of how I really am envisioning it to be. And it will be another small group coaching program, but it will be around sort of those big life transitions, those big life goals that people have that seem to just get put off and put off and put off, like changing careers or quitting your job and traveling the world for 4 months.
Yes, traveling. That's what I was
going
to say.
Or, deciding to move across country or buy a house, or, really anything, really any of the goals, that you've been putting off or that seem huge.
Out of reach.
Yeah, and maybe are huge, but seem out of reach. And how to basically do those in 90 days.
I love that. Is there anything else that you want to share? Maybe where people can connect with you?
Yeah, well, by the time this airs, my website will be up.
Yes.
So it's www.kaseyphillips.com. It's just my name. Or on Instagram, just at Kasey Phillips. I was an early Instagram user, so I got my name.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's awesome. Follow her. She's got recipes she shares, lots of fitness, wellness topics, all kinds of things on her Instagram. She's like one of the best people in the world, so you should definitely follow her and go check out her website. Thank you again, Kasey. I love you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be here.
Hey, in case you missed it, the previous 2 times I have announced it, Kasey's website launched today. So it's the end of the episode. Take a few minutes, of course, subscribe, rate, review the show, but also head over to Kasey's website. She has so many incredible things to offer you, and I promise you, you are not going to want to miss the opportunity to work with her. So once again, her website, www.kaseyphillips.com. That's spelled KaseyPhillips.com. I'm not joking, you guys. Her website is on point. It is so pretty, so to the point, very easy to navigate, and oh my gosh, I just love it. I love everything. I love all of her branding. I love it all. So go check her out. She is incredible. Thank you for listening to the show, and I hope you have a great day. All right. Bye.